and today I'll be talking about a raisin in the sun. And of course, I'll tackle this topic through the Marxist lens. And let's start. This is my presentation outline. First, I have, of course, the introduction and then Marxism. I'll be explaining and defining Marxism, and then main characteristics, main themes. Then I'll be talking about a Raisin in the Sun, the play. Then I'll be talking about the playist or dramatist, Lauren Hansberry. Then the Marxism and the world of the youngers. Here I'll be applying Marxism to the play. Then I'll be talking about class division. I was about to say definition. We know what class is. Now, in this presentation, I'll be talking about class divisions, then class conflict and economic determinism, alienation and dehumanization, property, power, and racial capitalism. Then I'll be moving to gender, labor, and Marxist feminism. Then, of course, I'll be talking about the family as the site of collective resistance. And the final thing is critical papers. I'll show you two papers and how they examine A Raisin in the Sun through a Marxist lens. And then we have a conclusion. Of course, I'm not going to forget the bibliography. So let's start. What is Marxism in literature? Marxism is both a social theory and a method of literary criticism that comes from the ideas of Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. It focuses on how economic systems, class struggles, and power structures shape human behavior, culture, and art. So in literature, Marxism helps us analyze what? How class divisions affect characters and societies, and how money, labor, and ownership influence human values, and how authors reveal or challenge social inequality through their works. We talked about what Marxism in literature is. Then let's talk about the main characteristics of Marxist literary theory. So the first thing is class conflict. So every society is divided into classes. The rich bourgeoisies who own the means of production and the poor proletariat who sell their labor. Literature often reflects this tension, showing oppression, struggle, or rebellion. Then we'll be moving to economic determinism. So Marxists believe that the economy shapes everything: family relations, politics, religion, and even art. Writers show how money and property determine people's choices, dreams also, and morality. And the third characteristic is alienation and exploitation. So under capitalism, workers become alienated from their labor, from nature, from others, and from even themselves. Imagine this. So Marxist critics look for characters who feel powerless or dehumanized because they don't control their own work or destiny. And then the fourth characteristic is ideology and false consciousness. What do I mean by that? Ruling classes control society not just through money, but also by controlling ideas. So literature can expose how people are tricked into accepting unfair systems. For example, thinking poverty is their fault, or that success equals what? Wealth. And the fifth characteristic is materialism over idealism. So Marxism values real world conditions: food, shelter, labor, ownership, more than abstract ideas like spirit, faith, destiny. It studies how material needs drive the plot and conflict. And then the sixth one is revolutionary potential. Many Marxist works emphasize the possibility of change, that the oppressed can resist, unite, and transform society. And the seventh one is reflection of society. What do I mean here? So I mean that Marxist critics see literature as a mirror of its time, not just art, but a product of social and forces. Economic forces. Main themes. Let's move to the main themes. Let's move to the main themes. Here we have class struggles or class struggle and inequality. We have also power and oppression, alienation and dehumanization, capitalism and materialism, collective action and hope, resistance and revolution. I'm not going to leave you like this, reading only the main points. No, I'm going to explain each one. So let's go to class struggle and inequality. So what do I mean here? Literature reveals the gap between the rich and poor and how it causes suffering or rebellion. So for example, here from the play, the younger families fight for a home in a Raisin in the Sun symbolizes what? Class resistance. Power and oppression. It studies how those in power use wealth, education, or laws or to control others. So in this play, white property owners use money to maintain racial and class hierarchies. Then we have alienation and dehumanization. People lose their sense of worth when they are valued only for their labor or money. So Walter Lee feels worthless because his work brings him no pride or freedom. That's sad, unfortunately. So capitalism and materialism. Many Marxist texts critique how capitalism replaces human love, art, and ethics with greed and competition. So here from the play, Walter's obsession with the liquor store shows how capitalism distorts dreams. And then we have collective actions and hope. Here, Marxism often ends with unity. Family, workers, or oppressed people standing together. So here we see this in the play. The younger's final act of moving into the house reflects collective strength and dignity. We have resistance and revolution. What do I mean here? Change comes when the oppressed recognize their power and challenge injustice. So from the play, Walter's refusal to take the white man's money is a symbolic revolution against capitalist racism. So let's go to the play itself. Lauren Hansberry's Raisin in the Sun, which was published in 1959, tells the story of the younger family. And here I'm going to ask you this question: why younger? I know names are very important in literature, but I need you to think about this. Why younger? Why the name younger? So, the younger family, an African American family living in a small, overcrowded apartment in Chicago during the 1950s. After the death of the father, the family receives $10,000 life insurance check, which becomes the center of conflict as each family member dreams of using it in different ways. Lena, a mama, wants to buy a house to fulfill her late husband's dream and give the family a better life. Walter Lee, her son, wants to invest the money in a liquor store to gain financial independence and escape his job as a chauffeur. Benita, Walter's sister, hopes to use part of the money for medical school so she can become a doctor and find her identity. Ruth, Walter's wife, just wants peace and stability for her family. So their plans are threatened when Walter loses the investment money to a dishonest business partner. However, the family regains unity when they decide to move into the new house, even though it is in a white neighborhood that doesn't want them there, of course. In the end, Walter rejects a white man's offer to buy them out, choosing pride and dignity over what? Over money. the American dream despite racial and economic barriers. Of course, I'll be talking about the writer, the playwright, Lorraine Hansberry. Hansberry was an American playwright, writer, and activist whose work transformed American theater by giving voice to the struggles, hopes, and dignity of Black families in mid-20th century America. She was born on May 19, 1930 in Chicago into a well-educated, politically active African American family. Her parents, Carol and Nani Hansberry, were prominent civil rights advocates. In fact, her father famously fought an illegal battle against racially restrictive housing laws, a real-life experience that later, of course, inspired Raisin in the Sun, her play. Hansberry grew up during the time of racial segregation and economic inequality. Although she was raised in a middle-class household, she witnessed firsthand the struggles of Black Americans facing discrimination, poverty, and limited opportunities. This early exposure to injustice deeply influenced her writing and social activism. Powell Robeson and W.E.B. Du Bois. These experiences strengthened her political awareness and connected her with Marxist, feminist, and anti-colonial ideas that shaped her worldview. In 1959, at just 29 years old, imagine this, Hansberry made history with the Broadway premiere of A Raisin in the Sun. It was the first play written by an African American woman to be produced on Broadway. This is amazing. It won the New York Drama Critics Circle Award for Best Play, making Hansberry the youngest American and the first Black playwright ever to receive the honor. This is amazing. So the play's title comes from Langston Hughes' poem Harlem, which was published in 1951, which asks, what happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun? Hansberry's play answers this question through the younger family's deferred dreams of success and freedom, turning Hughes' poetic vision into what? Social drama. So after Raisin in the Sun, Hansberry continued writing plays and essays that explored issues of colonialism, gender, and class, including The Sign in Sydney Pursutin's Window and Les Blancs, published posthumously in 1970. So Hansberry wasn't only a playwright, but also a political thinker, deeply influenced by Marxist and socialist ideals. She believed that racial oppression was intertwined with economic exploitation, that true freedom required both racial justice and class equality. Racial and moral struggles of a working class Black family in 1950s Chicago, of course. Through the younger family, Hansberry reveals how capitalism, class inequality, and racial segregation intersect to shape human identity, relationships, and also dreams. So from a Marxist perspective, the play portrays the proletariat's desire to rise within an unjust capitalist system. Each character represents a different response to economic oppression. Walter's yearning for business success beneath his intellectual rebellion, Ruth's quiet endurance, and Mama's moral faith. So together they form a microcosm of Marxist struggle, ordinary people confronting the structures that define their worth through what? Money and property. but still shows what? Class divisions clearly through how people think, talk, and dream. So let's identify them in the story. We have proletariat or working class. The younger family represents the black working class, people who labor hard but have little control over their economic future. We have Walter Lee Younger, works as a chauffeur for a rich white man. He sells his time and energy but owns nothing. A clear example of what? Marx's alienated worker. We have Ruth, uh, also works as a domestic servant, showing how working class women face double exploitation by class and gender. And also, let's mention the apartment's condition: shared bathroom, black space, tired furniture. So it symbolizes their class position. They survive but don't thrive. Also, we have the bourgeoisie, upper class, the wealthy white society, especially represented by Mr. Lindner, and also another name that you have to think about, why the word Lindner, and the white homeowners. Embodies the bourgeoisie. They already own property and control resources. Their offer to buy the younger's house is an attempt to protect their privilege and power. They disguise economic dominance under good intentions or neighborhood values, which reflects ideological control, convincing others to accept injustice as what? As normal. So Mr. Lindner's polite racism is the voice of the bourgeoisie system, keeping the working class out of wealth and property. People want to live in a certain kind of way, of course. That way means maintaining class and race barriers, the capitalist order disguised as civility. So the petty bourgeoisie, or let's say the middle class dreamers, they're unfortunately only dreamers. Walter Lee also represents the petty bourgeoisie. In his dreams, he wants to escape working class poverty by becoming a small business owner. This is the class that hopes to rise but often fails because the capitalist system traps them. So Walter dreams of owning a liquor store, believing ownership equals what? Freedom. However, when he loses the investment money, Hansberry shows that individual ambition in capitalism often destroys collective family security. So, from a Marxist view, Walter's dream exposes the illusion of capitalism, that hard work automatically leads to what? To success. He learns that real power is not in money, but in unity and self respect. We have class conflict and economic determinism. So, at its heart, A Raisin in the Sun is a study of what? Of class struggle. The youngers live in a small, worn out apartment, sharing a bathroom with neighbors. A sign of what? Economic deprivation. So every conversation circles back to money, 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 money. If it was about only about money, Walter wants to invest in a liquor store. Benita needs tuition for medical school. And Lena, Mama, dreams of a house with a garden. Oh, this mirrors Karl Marx's idea of economic determinism, the belief that material conditions control human life. So the writer characters are trapped by their class position. Their dreams depend entirely on financial opportunity. Walter, when he said, I'm 35 years old. I've been married 11 years and I got a boy who sleeps in the living room. And all I got to give him is stories about how rich white people live. So Walter's despair shows Marx's concept of proletarian alienation. He labors for others, but gains no dignity or control. He is both the worker and the dreamer. He is torn between wanting to escape his class and being imprisoned by it. We have alienation and dehumanization. So, alienation is one of Marx's central ideas. The worker becomes estranged from his labor, from his humanity, and from others. Walter, as a chauffeur, drives wealthy men around but owns nothing himself. He becomes alienated from his wife, mother, and even his own dreams. When Walter declares, because it's life, Mama, and Mama replies, oh, so? No, it's life. Money is life. Once upon a time, freedom used to be life. Now it's money. So Hansberry captures the spiritual death caused by what? Capitalism. Walter's identity and happiness are tied to material success. He has internalized capitalist ideology, believing that worth equals what? Wealth. This false consciousness, in Marxist terms, blinds him to the moral and communal values that truly sustain life. So Benita, too, suffers from alienation. Not from labor, but from identity. She resists the role that capitalist patriarchy assigns to women, and her search for cultural and intellectual freedom, especially through her relationship with Asagi, challenges the idea that progress must be measured by what? By dignity? No, by money. We have property, power, and racial capitalism. So, in Marxism, ownership of property is the basis of power. The younger's decision to buy a house in the white neighborhood becomes a political act, of course, a fight for access to what capitalism and racism both deny them: ownership, space, and equality. The white representative, Mr. Lindner, offers to buy them out to keep segregation intact. This act symbolizes how capitalist systems use money to maintain racial hierarchies, controlling who can live where and who deserves wealth. Mr. Lindner, people want to live in a certain kind of way. They want their children raised in a certain kind of neighborhood. So this is economic racism. Property becomes what? A tool of oppression, not freedom, of course. By rejecting Lindner's offer, Walter rejects both capitalist compromise and racial submission. Of course, he transforms from a man chasing profit into one asserting dignity and self-determination, which is a key Marxist ideal. We have gender, labor, and Marxist feminism. So, Hansberry also reveals the double oppression of women under capitalism, both economic and patriarchal. Ruth works tirelessly as a domestic worker and homemaker, yet she remains voiceless in financial decisions. Her exhaustion and contemplation of a portion show the psychological toll of poverty. Benita, on the other hand, challenges gender and class expectations. She seeks what? Education and independence, resisting both capitalist consumerism and patriarchal dependency. Her voice introduces Marxist feminism, the idea that true liberation requires freeing both the working class and women, of course, from exploitation. Family as the site of collective resistance. While capitalism divides people through competition, Hansberry's play ends with unity, a collective family consciousness. When Walter says, "We have decided to move to our house because my father, he earned it for us brick by brick," he symbolically joins the revolutionary tradition Marx admired, workers reclaiming dignity from oppressive systems. The younger family refuses to be what? To be bought. Proving that moral value can resist economic pressure. Mama's plan, small, fragile, but alive, represents the resistance of life and hope within a system that tries to what? To choke her. So their act of moving is not just social mobility, it's a class defense and racial assertion, embodying the Marxist theme of resistance and challenge. Here we have the two critical papers viewed through a Marxist lens. A Raisin in the Sun is not only a family drama but a profound critique of American capitalism. Here we have the title, a Marxist reading of Lorraine Hansberry, A Raisin in the Sun, which was published in 1959. The author is Uhud Al-Aqil, publication date published on or in 2022 in Arab World English Journal for Translation and Literary Studies. Here, this article examines A Raisin in the Sun through a Marxist critical lens, focusing on class struggle, economic oppression, and racial inequality in mid-20th century America. It argues that Lorraine Hansberry uses the younger family's pursuit of the American dream to expose capitalist exploitation, systemic racism, and the limitations placed on African American social mobility. The study highlights how themes of dignity, resistance, and collective struggle reflect Hansberry's Marxist views, while also engaging with issues of race, gender, and Black identity. The other paper is, the title of the other paper is Racial Discrimination Reflected in Kenny Loren's Raisin the Sun movie. Here, of course, we're talking about the movie. Author Do Sibiana. I know that I put your name, so sorry if I butchered your name. So publication day was published in 2010. This research paper actually analyzes Kenny Loren's 2008 film adaptation of A Raisin in the Sun using a Marxist critical framework. It focuses on how racial discrimination, class inequality, and economic oppression shape the lives of the younger family in 1950s Chicago. The study argues that racism functions alongside capitalism to marginalize African American, portraying the black working class as what? Economically exploited and socially excluded, while emphasizing themes of dignity, resistance, family unity, and the struggle for equality. So this is my conclusion. Viewed through a Marxist lens, A Raisin in the Sun is not only a family drama, but a profound critique of American capitalism. Hansberry shows that poverty is not just personal misfortune. Through the younger family's journey, the play exposes how capitalism dehumanizes individuals, divides families, unfortunately, and distorts dreams. Here is my bibliography. And then thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions, you can contact me at reemalharbienglishliterature@gmail.com, and see you soon. Bye bye.